Now we have gone through this journey of agroforestry, and we have reached our final target, the area around Lake Victoria. And Deputy Regional Director Wangu Mutua is a Kenyan working in the East Africa region. She has a bachelor degree in economics from Moi University and a master degree in project planning and management from Masena University in Kenya. For over 11 years, she has been working with communities living within the Lake Victoria Basin in East Africa through VI Agroforestry, where she is currently working as a Deputy Regional Director. VI Agroforestry promotes agroforestry, which has proven to be very important in improving and ensuring food sufficiency and security all year round. Welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope we had enough caffeine for the afternoon. I will start off with a small introduction of who VI Agroforestry is. Here in Sweden, we are more known as V Skogen, but out in the regions, we are more known as V Agroforestry. Just so we have a good understanding of where I'm coming from. So it's a Swedish organization that is, and the headquarters is here in Stockholm. I'm thinking I'm in Stockholm. With some of the colleagues, former colleagues, so we sort of had a mini reunion in the morning. And we are working in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda around the Lake Victoria Basin in East Africa. But we also have some presence in Malawi, working within the Lake Malawi Basin. We are largely funded by the Swedish public and SIDA, but we also have other smaller projects from other sources of money, for example, the Nordic Climate Facility. So what are we trying to achieve? Where do we do this? I've said that in the previous slide. And how do we do this? Yeah, this picture looks, what, complicated or wicked? So basically, this is how our journey has been as an organization from when we started. We had huge, massive tree nurseries and would hand out the small trees for farmers to plant in their farms. But over time, this has changed and focusing more on actually providing the extension service to the farmers and enabling the farmers to have that information and education and awareness on how they can grow the tree seedlings themselves in their own farms, how they can incorporate trees within their farms, how the same trees can support their food production, provide food for the animals, that's the fodder, provide fuel wood for cooking. So over time, it's sort of like we have been adding on and on and on the kind of work that we have been doing. So today we are also looking into markets, rural financial services, also working with school children, and increasingly now recently also working with local organizations so they can also own the message. So it's not like this Swedish organization that's doing weird things in the villages somewhere, but actually bringing on board the local organizations who will be there forever, really, because they are mostly organizations owned by the local people to also take up this message and own it and run with it. So that's what we are increasingly also working with today. Most of the farmers from the presentations in the it was mostly the people who are presented so far. I had this feeling that it's mostly about working in the forest and trying to grow some things in the forest. But for our situation, it's more of farmland and bringing the tree to the farmland. That is what we work more with. And in some cases, we have farmers who also have livestock. It's very common to have some chicken, some cows, some goats, but it's not always a guarantee that everyone will have some animals. But it's more common that most of the farmers have animals. So why should we bother with agroforestry, especially in the place that we work? This graph is actual data from one of the projects that we are working with in Western Kenya. And the difference with this project compared to what we've done before is the rigor of the data collection. It is in such a way that we have to collect the yield of a certain sample of farmers. And the whole idea is to use proper land practices in the farms, and the trend of the yield response has been quite amazing. So maize has almost doubled in terms of the amount that the farmers are able to harvest. And for the beans and sorghum, they're not planted in huge quantities, but the trend is also quite positive over time. So when we ask the question why agroforestry, then to us it's almost obvious that we need to increase food production. The land is becoming less and less. The people are becoming more and more. But all these people need to be fed by, the land is not increasing. And the soils over time have been becoming more depleted. So how do we feed this huge number of people with less natural resources? So it's really important to improve what we have and do the production in a way that we're able to get more food. Some pictures here. These two pictures are from Rwanda, and this, I would say, is how this would be sort of a very proud farmer with his farm on being able to have some trees and some bananas. In some cases it could be some maize or whatever crops they want to grow. But we also have some that take the seedlings production for commercial purposes. So not everyone has the patience to, for example, nurture seeds into seedlings. So there are some farmers who have taken this as a business, so they are able to provide that service for others. Some chicken and some goats. Increasingly, especially the dairy goats are becoming more and more important, especially because of the nutritional content of the milk. More so because the area we work in is also quite heavily impacted by HIV and AIDS, so the question of nutrition becomes even more critical. The firewood, yeah, you can plant all the trees you want, but if the usage of the trees, especially for cooking, is faster than you're able to replenish, then you will more and more have less and less trees. So this is an improved cook stove that uses less firewood, and I would say cooking is one of the biggest consumption of trees in the area that we are working, because everyone is cooking 3 times a day or more, at least morning, lunchtime, and evening. So it's really something that can consume very fast the trees that the farmers are planting in the land. So we have to still not forget how efficiently we are able to use the trees that we have. This is another. This is in Western Kenya, another group that is doing this as a way of raising income. So they are able to sell the seedlings to other farmers. This is a picture or two pictures from two neighboring farms. Actually, these two are separated by a footpath like this wide, and the only difference is this one has decided to take up agroforestry, and this one has. I'm not sure what he has decided, but but you can see he's already losing the soil. They are in a bit of a gentle slope, so he's already losing the soil. He's not really getting much from his farm. But the other one is, the farm looks really good, and he's getting good harvest, and he's able to feed his cows with some napier grass, and the farm just looks beautiful. But yeah, still going back to the question, why agroforestry? I would say, why not agroforestry? Yeah, from some of the guiding notes we received from our able facilitator is what would be important to assess, and when it comes to agroforestry. And it was not an easy question to answer, but I was just thinking everything that matters, but it matters to who? And to me, I was thinking the people, how does the practices impact on the people, especially on their livelihoods? The yields, are the yields increasing, or will my yields go down because of taking up some of the practices? For example, how do the landscapes change over time? Will I make money as a farmer? Will the soil be improved? The plate, that's the food, the children, the market, everything. It's many dimensions on what really you would assess. I guess it would depend on why are you assessing, what do you want in the end. So I would say it's not an easy question to answer on what is the most important thing to assess. So I would say it depends on what the situation is, or what exactly you want to measure. Yeah, going back to the question in the morning, complex, complicated, or wicked. Yeah, it's many things that are happening, especially in the region that we are working in. But all the same, as the message, the agroforestry message for us, it has to make sense to the small-scale farmer, who is our main client, if I may put it so. And the message has to be easy enough to be understood by everyone, regardless of whether you went to school or not. It just have to make sense. And of course, money becomes an issue, so it has to make business sense. You wouldn't tell me to take up a practice that will be more expensive for me to implement and give me less yields or less income than I was getting before. Yeah, and it has to be cheaper to apply. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent to listen to your experiences regarding the agroforestry. You have worked in the area for many years, and we hear about how to integrate livelihood and markets in a successful way. Before we open the floor, I would like to ask about you told us about they have doubled the yield for maize, and that's excellent. That's what I spoke about during the introduction this morning. We would like that seemed to be necessary all over the landscape. Is that possible in your area? Would you see that as a future goal?
Well, I think the issue, like I had shared just before the start of the presentation, is it's most of these practices, it's very easy to apply them in small lands, like the application of the manure and having trees intercropped. But then when you come to the big landowners, we are not working with the big landowners ourselves, but it's always a question in my mind. If maybe you have this farmer with, say, 50 acres of land, most of them want to go in with a tractor and dig up and open up and plant, and that's it. So the application of these practices in the bigger scale is a question, I think, that needs further discussion on how do we get even the huge commercial farmers taking up these practices, because it makes sense to apply these practices not only for the farmer but also for the fact that the soil can still continue to produce over time without really degrading. So it's not just about feeding us today, it's also about leaving enough resources so the future generations can still be able to use the same soils to feed themselves.
In a sustainable way.
Yeah.
So you see, for the small households, you see it's possible to increase the number of households working in this with these systems.
Yeah.
But you see a challenge regarding the bigger areas.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Let's open up the discussion for the floor.
Gunilla Åkesson from the Linnaeus University. Could you tell us a bit more about how this agroforestry is carried out? I mean, what is it all about in Viskogen?
Yeah.
How do you do it? What sort of trees and so on and crops, and how do you mix it? What are you doing in practice?
Okay, what for a long time we have done is if I may take you back to the complicated picture, this one. So what for a long time we have done is we had massive number of field officers out there in the field living with the farmers, and they would provide the training and provide the tree seeds for planting, for raising the tree nurseries to be able to plant. But also we use a lot of education through the local radios and having like small meetings in the villages where these trainings are also done. But what has changed now today is that instead of that heavy presence in the field, now we make use of the farmer organizations in the ground. So the community-based organizations, for example, but still providing this education. So how do you and it's not, while the tree is at the center, it's many other things. So for example, it could be maybe a group is interested in poultry keeping, for example. So providing that information of this is how you go about keeping the poultry, and is it poultry that is the best shot for you, for example? Why must it be poultry for you? So being able to like decide or have enough information to decide what kind of enterprise do you want to carry out, and then having that information of how to do it. The complexity, not really complexity, but the issue is that in as much as farming is sort of widely practiced by many people, in many instances it has been done because we have always done it, so we do it because it has always been done. But it is not done in the right way, in the business perspective, looking into the market and really looking into how will you be able to make more returns from what you're doing in your farm. So it's not a question of, if it was about just hard-working people, I believe people in Africa would be the richest, maybe. But but it's a question of, is it being done in the right way? Because every day you will find a farmer who wakes up every morning to go to till his land. But is he doing it in the right way? Is he choosing the right planting material, for example? Does he know where the market for his produce will come from? So it's many layers and many angles of a lot of information that needs to go out there. And also the organization of the farmers being able to be in to be organized in a proper way. So we are working with that a lot now, so that we strengthen these farmer organizations, so they can be strong and be able to serve their members in a better way. So it's many things, but yeah.
Eskil Mattsson from Chalmers and Fokali. maybe this is a big question, but I was wondering about, I mean, what are the common obstacles or problems that you encounter in villages when you are trying to make this initiative successful or scaling up the system? Can you say something about that? Thank you.
I think in many instances, at times, for example, if you go back to the case of the neighboring farmers, the two pictures I showed, when you ask, so if this farmer is seeing that the neighbor's farm is doing well, so why is he not taking up these practices? And you might find that maybe, like for this case, it happened that that farmer was a teacher at a primary school, so he had another source of income. So he fell into the category of the group that just farms just because everyone else is farming. So there's that element of we farm because now it is time for everyone to farm in the village. So sort of mindset, I would say. The mindset, I think, plays a big role because it's very different. Within the same locality, you can find a farmer who is really focused and knows what he wants to do and really is successful in doing that. But if you find one who has a mindset of my great-grandfather, my grandfather, everyone has always done it this way, so why should I change? And after all, yeah, life continues. So the mindset, I think, plays a big role. Yeah.
Hi, Aliana Pinheiro from Runa Foundation. I noticed, and you actually didn't touch on this in your presentation, but I noticed in your bio here, it said that women and children issues in rural development are key issues that you're interested in. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how that plays into the work that you do at V Agroforestry. It plays a very big, it's a big thing, especially in the region that we are working in. And agroforestry is, for example, yeah, it is done on land, but who owns this land? It is largely owned by or inherited over generations through the fathers pass on to the sons. So the women sort of are left hanging, and the argument is that they will go and get married, so they will own the land that is owned by the husband. But still, they are sort of like foreigners in a way because they came from elsewhere. So really they don't have like that strong ownership of the land, while at the same time they are the biggest group that actually provide the labor in these farms. They are the ones working in these farms. So it's a big issue that we struggle with in our work. We have now a decision has now been made by our organization that 50% of our intervention has to go to women. So we deliberately have to do that. We are trying to see how do we fit in this, so up to the grassroots it becomes the situation. The children also, it's a big issue, and we've had actually different special projects specifically targeting the children and them being able to be aware of what are their rights and how are they able to look at agriculture as a fun way to learn and earn life skills, for example, and not look at agroforestry as something that is left for failures or people who can't do any better. So there's a lot of many dynamics that come into play, and for the women also it's a question of being empowered, not only with the information but also economically. So how can they, if they don't own the land, they don't have the title, so they can't approach a bank to get a bank loan. So how do we handle that? So the issues of like the rural savings and loaning that we're promoting become very handy because they are able to save amongst themselves as a group member and loan each other from the saved kitty. They loan each other some money, and then you can go and start your poultry projects, for example, and things like that. But there are many other bigger issues in the region we're working, especially surrounding gender issues. Yeah, it's still a big challenge. Yeah.
Björn Lundgren from SIFI and African Forest Forum. I have three questions. One is, you were very modest, I think, Wangu, when you did not mention how, in a quantitative term, successful the VI agroforestry program has been from 83 to 14. You did not mention how many farmers are involved, how big areas are involved, how many trees are or have been planted, but they are truly staggering figures when you hear them. So if you know them, I'll let you know talk about that. But then I have two very technical questions. One is a graph you showed about this increased maize yield, which is indeed impressive in such a short time. It's almost as if I would be hesitant to believe that it is true, because there must be rainfall variations over such a period of years that would have affected it. But anyway, I assume they are correct. Did that include also, did you add any amount of small amounts of mineral fertilizers to any of these plots, or this is simply manure nitrogen fixation that has achieved this increase, you think, or you know? And my final question is that on some of the pictures you showed, I saw that there were in your farms, there were both, some farms there were grevillea trees, in some I saw cypress trees, both of which are reasonably valuable timber trees. Are you aware of any of the VI farmers that have started to sell timber trees to local sawmills, for example? And if not, why don't they? Are the trees not mature enough yet, or are they not aware that that is a potential commercially interesting thing?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, with the results from 1983 to now, yeah, it's huge figures. Only I didn't come with them here, but we have been working in the previous programs. You have been targeting like 250,000 households in the entire area, and right today we are targeting, like in the current program, we are targeting 150,000 households. So it has been, yeah, it has been quite huge successes over the years. With the use of the chemical fertilizers, this is actually from one of our carbon projects that we have been piloting with the World Bank in Western Kenya, and the bulk of it has mostly been on increasing organic matter in the soil. It is not that everyone is not using chemical fertilizers. Some of the areas, especially in the maize growing areas in Bungoma, it's very common that the farmers are using fertilizers, but the application of the manure from the composting, that has been a big uptick, and using the crop residue to incorporate into the soil, that has been a big contributor to this. But in the Kisumu areas, it has almost been very minimal. Very few farmers are using the chemical fertilizers. So there it has, in a bigger percentage, been more of the manure from the farms. On selling of timber tree in Kenya, or for example, the timber is so precious. It's a huge demand for timber. We actually, at least in Kenya, it's actually a lot of it is imported from, for example, Congo and neighboring countries. So in Kenya, it's a huge demand. Most farmers are selling like to their neighbors within their village, so it's not a problem with the with getting the market. But one of the partners that we are working with is trying to organize all these farmers who have these trees, so they are able to sell the timber in a more organized way, in a proper way. In Rwanda, there has been efforts now, actually with support from from SIDA and the government and local NGOs. There are discussions right now going on about how to organize the timber right from the production to the processing of the timber. Yeah, so it's not like they are not selling. They are selling, but I would say the market has not been very organized. A lot can still be done in terms of organization of how to sell the timber. Yeah.
Mattias Jonsson, SLU. Yeah, it's very impressive the number of households that you have targeted, and yeah, I've been visiting Western Kenya with Ylva, and it's really nice to go out and visit those farmers. What I am wondering is how big is the risk that those techniques that they learn are abandoned after a while? Because I also remembered we tried to go and identify some of the farms that were targeted, well, in the beginning of the VI times, and actually at least I can remember one or two of them, they were not really practicing agroforestry anymore. So have you followed that up? And yeah, what's your sense of whether actually those practices stay?
Yeah, it's an interesting question you bring up, because that is one of the big risks of how we were organized before, where we had our own presence ourselves doing all the messaging and everything, and then when we leave, then it's not always a guarantee that everyone will continue with these practices. And that's why it's more important now that we work with these local organizations, because they are farmer organizations, and they are able to have close support to their members more than we, because for us, if we move from one area and move to the other, so what support system do we leave behind? So that's why it's really important that now we focus in strengthening the local farmer organizations to continue with this support to the members. But it's a proper observation. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Ylva Nyberg from SLU, and I used to work for VI, so I didn't want to ask, I wanted to add on another question before, because I think much of it has not always been that it has been very easy for farmers to take up agroforestry. I think in the beginning of when the organization started working, it was quite tough actually to package it in a way that the farmers would easily adopt it. So I think much of the success has been that it has been like a long-term, we have been there for quite some time and managed now to package it in a very attractive way for farmers, especially with these local village and saving associations, which make farmers and especially the women be able to save money and and within that group we can then target the farmers with the trainings and the information that we have in a way that we didn't do in the beginning, or the organization didn't do in the beginning. And also I wanted to add, because you talked about it's a lot about the mindset of people also, and I think that's one thing that we have also, or that VI has also realized, that many of the trainings are actually starting with like trying to focus on the mindset of people, that in order to change to something positive, we have to be willing to try something new and to have that goal in mind. Then I could also add to the graph that you have up there that we are working on publishing this data at the moment, so hopefully it will come out maybe next year, or so it will come in an article. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that have to summarize this question we have here right now for the day. And thank you, Director Mutua, so much for this.
Thank
you.